Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Ril Dil Quinn. On a Thursday, as we gear towards a Veterans Day weekend, I'm first of all, I need to apologize for this podcast going to be released a day later than normal. So my apologies for that, but I'm here, and I'm going to trust me, I will make up for that as we will have I have a special podcast coming up that will be certainly worth the wait. I'm excited about it, and it'll be out in a couple of days. It'll be out in a couple of days. I don't know, I might drop it, this weekend, maybe. But we are here for another week of NFL football. Of course, tonight I am solo again. We will soon be getting back Mr. Sapp, as I'm sure he has a lot of thoughts on his football team. But I have all the thoughts on the Buffalo Bills right now. Themes of this week, as we look back at a week 9 in the league where no contract is guaranteed, the gap has been closed. I'm going to expand on that. Later on, and I can say that in college football as well. We're going to do some college football because it's been a great year of college football, and I apologize to my college football fans if I have not given college football the necessary love that it deserves, because it's been a phenomenal year for college football, and I'm looking forward to this last month and a half up until the bowl season starts in December of college football. Great weekend of college football this past weekend that we had. All the thoughts, of course, the Buffalo Bills fell to the New York Football Jets 20-17. The Jets now improved to 6-3, and Buffalo falls to 6-2. Now, Buffalo, it once thought that they were going to run and hide with this division. That is not the case. They have the Jets and the Dolphins on their heels, and both the Jets and Dolphins have beaten the Bills. Okay, they make up the only two losses that the Bills have this season. Matter of fact, looking at the standings right now, Buffalo's 0-2 in that division, while the Jets and Miami are both 2-1. Even New England is 1-1 in that division. So Buffalo, it could be a very interesting finish towards the AFC East. I still favor the Bills because I still think they're the best team in that division. I still think probably pound for pound the best team in the league, but um, it's this was a loss I think that was a carryover from the Green Bay second half. Buffalo played a horrible, miserable second half against Green Bay last week. Only scored 3 points. Josh Allen had 2 interceptions, and I think that this carried over into this entire game against the New York Jets. Now, give the Jets a lot of credit defensively. Jets have a legit top 10 defense, but but you allow the Jets to rush for over 173 yards. Buffalo now in the last 2 weeks against Green Bay and New York, and the Jets have given up 382 yards rushing in 2 weeks. Think about what I just said, 382 yards rushing. That will not win you a Super Bowl. Matter of fact, that's not going to even get you to the Super Bowl. They have to tighten up that run defense because I was concerned about it. I was a little bit concerned about it after the Green Bay game. Now I'm very concerned about it. This is back-to-back weeks. And listen, the Jets is one thing to defend, to have to go against Aaron Rodgers and say, hey, we rather have them run the ball than Aaron Rodgers beat us. You're going against Zach Wilson. There's no way in the world that the Jets should have been able to run for 173 yards on Buffalo with Zach Wilson under center. That just shouldn't happen. Um, so I think that Buffalo, I'm looking at their offense. This probably was Josh Allen's worst game of the season. He was awful in this game. Had 2 interceptions. Could have had more. This is one of these games where Jets hung around and it became a fourth quarter game. And you give an underdog, a team that you should handle, some life going to that fourth quarter, especially on the road. Anything can happen. We saw that in Miami when they lost to Miami early in the season in September, and we saw that similar to this game in in New York. So give the Jets a lot of credit for hanging in there. They're a tough-minded football team, similar to the Giants. Both really don't I don't have think have franchise quarterbacks. So the Jets are much higher on Wilson than any Giants fans are or Giants brass are on Daniel Jones. I'll say that. I was doing the radio broadcast for this game, and the Jet announcers were just going gaga over Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is he's okay. He's okay. I haven't seen anything to say that Zach Wilson is going to be this franchise quarterback. I've not seen enough to say that. I really haven't. He now to his credit in this game he did what Josh Allen couldn't do, and that was not make mistakes. Okay, he didn't make any mistake as far as what I mean by that, no turnovers, no fumbles, no interceptions. So from that standpoint, he did an excellent job. He was like 18 to 25 for 178, nice economical workman-like performance. But the most important thing he did do was not turn over the football. Allowed them to stay in the game, uh, allowed their defense to continuously rush the passer, and allowed them to continue to be able to run the football as they did. Again, I'm not I'm not going too crazy about this game for Buffalo. I'm not saying Buffalo cannot still everything is still out there in front for Buffalo to do what they had intended to do coming into the season, as win the AFC Championship and win the Super Bowl. But it's not going to be. It's going to be a dogfight. Like it's going to be. It's not. It is not like going to walk over the league. And listen, they probably me and Sap was talking. Was thinking 16-1. Of course, that's not going to happen. I would probably think that they're going to lose at least one more game. I actually think that 14-3 and maybe even 13-4. I'm thinking right now 13-4. I think Buffalo probably will lose two more games, to be honest with you. So 14-3, 13-4, more than likely. I would lean towards 13-4. But regardless, Buffalo, their goal is, no matter what their record is, to have the best record in the conference. That's their goal. And right now, they still, even with the two losses, because of the win over Kansas City, they are number one in the conference right now at 6-2, 4-2 in the conference. So they still have everything in front of them. I'm not going to go too crazy on this loss because bottom line is that division is brutal. The AFC East now has every team in the AFC East is a game over 500. We've made fun of New England, but guess what? New England is 5-4. You have a 5-4 team that is in last place. You have two 6-3 teams in that division. That is a rough division. So I'm not going to go. I'm not going to jump on the Bills the way I know Mr. Sapp would. But it's going to be a little bit tougher than what I thought. I thought Kansas City was going to be the team that Buffalo would only have to worry about. It's more, AFC has some heavy hitters in it now. They have some teams now, and we'll talk about one later on in this podcast that could be more of a problem than we thought coming into this season. Great win for the Jets. Buffalo still has everything in front of them, so that was my take from that game. And from that game, we'll see what Buffalo does moving forward. Game of the week. This game was easily the game of the week to me. Tennessee and Kansas City. Now it's very rare that you come out more impressed. Well, more impressed with a team with the losing team than the winning team. But that's exactly was the case with this game. I thought Tennessee controlled this game from basically start to finish. I thought Kansas City was very fortunate to win this game. Now, you're going to say to yourself, well, Cyril, what are you talking about? Kansas City outgained Tennessee 499 to 229. They ran almost basically 43 more plays, 91 to 48. Tennessee controlled this game from a physical standpoint. This was a Tennessee type game. Look at the scores, 20-17 in overtime. This was a Tennessee type game. The key play, of course, was the 3rd and 17 run in the fourth quarter by Patrick Mahomes. That was the key to the whole game. If he doesn't get that first down, I think without question that Tennessee wins that game, because at that point, but Kansas City had done nothing offensively. So the last two games that Tennessee has played against Kansas City has scored a grand total of 23 points. scored 3 points last year and 20 this year and 20 in overtime. So it is clear to me that Vrabel and company have a beat on the Kansas City offense. If you're Kansas City, you want no parts of Tennessee in the playoffs. I don't care where the game is at. I don't care where the game is at. You want absolutely, and this was with their backup quarterback. This is with Willis. Okay. Yeah, no Tannehill in this game. And I know Tannehill's not great, but I'd still, you still rather have him than Willis in the mix. 172 yards rushing for Kansas City for Tennessee. Again, they physically controlled this game to me. They were knocking around Patrick Mahomes. He had to throw. Patrick Mahomes had to throw 68 passes in this game. Almost, I had over 40 completions. Was 43 or 68, over 400 yards, 400 plus yards of passing yards. They shut down the Kansas City running game. But I thought Tennessee controlled this game. To me, I walked away feeling very good, despite the loss, about Tennessee moving forward. Now, again, Kansas City won the game. That was the most important thing. They maintained pace with Buffalo still for that best record in the conference, which will be, I think that number one seed is going to be vital in the AFC this year because how deep the AFC is. But this game, I walked away with like, okay, Tennessee could be a problem in the playoffs. Even if I was Buffalo, I know Buffalo handled them earlier this season. I would not want to see I don't want to see a team, right, that plays that style. They are built to win anywhere. They have an excellent defense, and they have a running game that can travel, and they have a coach who is one of the five best coaches in the league right now. There's no question that Vrabel, to me, you're not out coaching Mike Vrabel. Like you're not going to embarrass Mike Vrabel. You're going to have to, if you you're going to have to beat Tennessee. They're not going to beat themselves. They're not going to make dumb mistakes. They're not going to have silly turnovers. Now there were a bunch of penalties in this game, but to me that favors Kansas City. They mucked up the game. They made the game physical. They turned it into a dog fight. They turned it into a ugly game. That favors, there was no rhythm, no flow to it, and that favors a team like Tennessee. Like Kansas City, high flying offense came in number one offense as far as points per game in the league and a top five offense, and even in terms of yards. They want the game to be pretty, free flowing. There was not that at all in this game, and I thought that they did an excellent job. To me, despite the difference in yardage of handling Kansas City's offense, Kansas City's offense there was no rhythm to this game from a Kansas City standpoint. And like I said, they have a beat on that offense. There's no way to it. That's all there is to it. Vrabel and company know what they're doing against that offense. And I'll be, again, if I'm Kansas City, that is a team that I just don't want to see in the playoffs, to be honest with you. Couple of games of note: Miami, Chicago, very exciting game. Of course, very high scoring for different reasons. Now, Tua again had the second straight week that he's been spectacular. 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He's back on top of his game. But the story to me of this game was Justin Fields. A couple of weeks ago, myself and Robert Sapp, about a month ago, we're talking about Justin Fields and the Chicago offense, and basically it was that. Remember that Thursday night game, Washington, Chicago, the 12-7 game, and how ugly that game was, just aesthetically to watch from both sides for both teams. I mean, it was an awful football game. And there, I guess there had to be a winner. And you're looking at the Chicago offenses, like me and Sapp discussed Justin Fields in particular, and basically said that this guy is shot, like mentally shot, like he can't see the field. Well, the last 3 games, Justin Fields has been great. Like he has 5 straight games of at least 80 yards rushing. Now, there's still some things that he's lacking as far as seeing the field. Okay, we're not sitting up here telling you he is become this deadly pocket quarterback. He hasn't. He still has a long way to go from that standpoint. But them allowing him to break loose with with his legs has really opened up. I think his has taken his confidence to another level. Like he now has entered the realm of dangerous running quarterback. Okay, a guy that something that will not last a decade, but at least something if you're a defensive coordinator that you have to plan game plan for, and that can be dangerous on a given Sunday where the guy can run for 100 and 50, 60, 178 yards, which he had against Miami. He was shredding Miami's defense, and it opened up some things. And he actually threw the ball. He actually threw the ball relatively well, to be honest with you. So now he's gotten to that level to where he's going from a quarterback who, to me, had zero confidence for most of the season and looked mentally shot to at to at least at the baseline a dangerous running quarterback. And outside, I can make a case outside Lamar Jackson, probably the second best running quarterback in the league right now. Like he can go 80 yards on any play if your defense, loses is gap control or they over pursue. Like you have to your goal to me, you have to keep him in the pocket. You have to and he's gotten to that level where you have to have a spy for him. You have to. You have to have an athletic linebacker that can spy Justin Fields. He can break, and like I said, he can break any run for 60, 70, 80 yards on any given play. So from that standpoint, I give Chicago offense the coaching credit for unlocking that, because again, it looked bad. It looked like I said, he looked like a guy that was completely mentally shot. But with that being said, Miami does get the win. They keep pace with the Buffalo Bills. Miami defense has not played well over the past couple of games against two bad football teams in regards to Detroit and Chicago. Now Detroit actually can score sometimes. Chicago is not a big scoring team, so something to keep note of if you are a Chicago fan looking to make a deep run in the not a Chicago fan. If you're a Miami fan looking to make a deep run in the playoffs, you gotta get that defense. Um, gotta get that defense under control. But they have an offense that can seemingly score on anybody. Those two receivers are just like Hill and Watkins. Hill is could get 2,000 yards. That is on the table this year. He has been unreal this year. Uh, what he's done week in, week out. He's seemingly getting 150 yards every game. So he's on 2,000 yards could be on the table for one Tyreek Hill. Detroit Green Bay. Green Bay now hits the lowest of lows, 15-6. Excuse me, was it 15-9 against the lowly Detroit Lions? Again, uh, this was Aaron Rodgers. Probably one of the worst performances of his career. 3 interceptions. Two of them were just horrible throws. I'm not going to knock him for that first one that hit the guy, the player. I think the defender's helmet that could have and got tipped, caught, intercepted off a ricochet. That can happen to anybody. But the last two were just horrible. The last two were just dreadful. Those are interceptions you never see out of Aaron Rodgers. He hadn't had a 3 interception game in 5 years. Go back 2017 season. The one he was trying to throw the opposite lineman. I don't know what he was looking at with that one. That was just that's where that it's just not we've been disconnect with he and LaFleur from a communication and from a just being on the same page from that standpoint. We've talked about that all season long with LaFleur and Rodgers rightfully so, has to take these hits. He gets the praise when he's winning MVPs, 4-time MVP the last 2 years, the MVP, and had been the best quarterback in the regular season, easily the last 2 years. But right now, this year he's been a bad player. So there's to it. He's been a bad player this year, and been one of the reasons why they are 3-6. The team again offensively is hard to watch. They are hard to watch offensively. They should not be this bad offensively. They shouldn't be at all. Again, even though seven teams make the playoffs, we know Green Bay is finished. The 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 question is now, I'm going to continuously ask this question about Green Bay is will Aaron Rodgers be a Packer in 2023? That's what that franchise is playing for right now because their season is done. That team has no shot whatsoever. Minnesota has ran and hot and hid with that division, and they're not getting more than one team, especially with the NFC East. NFC East is going to get three teams. The West could get two. We'll see what happens with that. But no, they're not getting. It's going to be Minnesota. And that's going to be it out of the NFC North. So we're going to do a deep dive on this college football weekend, in particular in the season. It has been a spectacular season in college football. That's all there is to it. Every week, a big time game. Every week seemingly has at least one classic game. This week, you had to return of one of the best rivalries we've seen in the last 20-25 years, and that's LSU Alabama. LSU is back. They win 32-31 in overtime in Baton Rouge. One of the great scenes that you'll ever see. Saturday night in Baton Rouge when both teams are good. They came in ranked, I think number 10. They came in ranked 10th. Um, Alabama is done as far as national championship. They're not that. This is just not going to happen. It's not going to happen this year. They're not even going to. I don't even now. Again, they're only they. I know they're theoretically not out of it. Um, if LSU drops a couple of games, but LSU would have to drop a couple of games, and that's not going to happen. LSU's not losing multiple games. The LSU owns a tiebreaker, and it's going to be LSU and Georgia in the SEC championship. I can't see it any other way. Um, this was a great football game to watch. These two teams go back and forth, um, tit for tat. And again, remember when this rivalry from like 2000, 10 to 2014, 15, 2014, 15, this was like one of the best rivalries. They had a 3 year stretch where this was the rivalry in college football. Like especially from like '09 to 2012, this was it. Like these two teams, this was it. NFL prospects left and right. LSU came back a couple years ago and got right with the Joe Burrow team, one of the all-time great teams in recent college football history in 2019. They are back. They're going to get more top recruits. Give Brian Kelly a lot of credit for going for two. He's not scared. You might as well at home. Forget about playing for the longer the game goes on, you just don't know. So I give a lot of credit for going for two in that spot. But look, I think that think about this college football season is we thought coming into the season that it was Alabama, Georgia, and everybody else. Georgia to me is still the best team pound for pound. I think they are the best team that I've seen this year, but they're not unbeatable. Like there's no team that's just going to run away and hide with this thing. You still have Georgia's out there. Tennessee, we know how good Tennessee is. We know how good Ohio State, Michigan are. Oregon, since losing to Georgia opening weekend, has been spectacular. There's just a lot of balance in these Power Five conferences. They're anywhere from 3 to 5 teams ranked in these Power Five conferences, and again, you're going to have. I think this is the best possible situation for college football to have still signature programs up top, right? Like you have LSU, Georgia could win a championship this year. LSU could win a championship this year. Ohio State, Michigan, USC. You still have your blue bloods, but there's no, there was a time where it was like, okay, it's gonna be Alabama, Clemson. It's gonna be Alabama. It's gonna be Alabama. It's gonna be. That's not the case anymore. This year, like that, there's going to be a different team from that standpoint, and we don't know what two teams are going to be playing in the national championship. Like we basically like there was a 5 year period where it either was going to be Alabama or Clemson. Great as Georgia is right now, I don't know if Georgia's going to be playing in that championship game. If you told me Georgia lost in the national semifinal, would I be surprised? No, no. I'm sorry, I would. I think there's too much balance. Now again, I think Georgia is going to be playing for the national championship. Matter of fact, I would lean towards Georgia repeating, but I don't feel as confident in that as I've had in say Alabama or Clemson uh, in the past 5 years as I do where Georgia is right now. I don't feel as confident from that standpoint. I think, and I'll be honest with you, I think that's a great thing for the sport. It creates a NCAA men's college basketball type feel to it, like a March Madness, like a bunch of very very good teams, but no team that just is head and shoulders above everybody else. I don't think Georgia is head and shoulders above everybody else. LSU could beat Georgia in the SEC championship, which would just shake, which would I'm sure some people would be thrilled by that. That would actually hurt some teams in these other conferences, these other Power Five conferences that are looking for those one of those four playoff spots. But no, it's been a phenomenal college football season. You still have on the table. I mean, even with that, Clemson loses to Notre Dame, but so what's happened is all these conferences have gotten better, even at the bottom, right? Like even the ACC, like Florida State has improved. Uh, the ACC I think, has 4 or 5 teams that are ranked in it. They have been ranked. So all these conferences that the talent has spread, all these conferences that have dramatically improved. We know the SEC is a battlefield week in and week out. So there are no dominant. There's not a dominant 2 or 3 teams in the country that are just going to run through anybody. Still getting a lot of big games that are left on the table. Um, in the regular season, of course, everybody's going to be geared towards that Michigan Ohio State showdown. That probably I would say is going to be an elimination game for one of those 2 teams. They're both undefeated right now. Oregon. We'll see what happens with Oregon in the Pac-12. We'll see which one of those teams can get in between Oregon, UCLA, and USC. Only one of those teams is getting in. Not 2 of them. Only one of those teams is getting in. Listen, you're going to have to use this. It's going to be the playoffs are going to be. I think, to be honest with you, I think 2 SEC teams. I find it harder to believe if two SEC teams don't get in. Like I think a combination of Georgia, LSU, or Georgia, Tennessee will 2 of those teams are going to get in, and then you're going to have I think the winner of the Ohio State Michigan, that team get in, and then one of 4 teams, either USC, UCLA, UCLA, USC, Oregon, or maybe TCU, maybe. So again, great college football season up so far, and still a lot of big games and some great action ahead in the next month. Stock up, stock down. Getting back to the NFL, AFC East. Look, coming into this season, we talked about Buffalo this, Buffalo that, Buffalo this, Buffalo that. Okay, Miami's could be a playoff team, but the rest of we just shitted on the rest of the division. Me and Robert Sapp did. We did. The entire division through 9 weeks has a winning record, and I think that it is not out of the realms that similar to obviously. I think the NFC East is definitely getting 3 teams. Would not be surprised if the AFC East got 3 teams. I don't think they will get 3 teams, but I will not be surprised if they got 3 teams. I think Buffalo and Miami are making the playoffs. I don't think New England. I don't think New England will. So the question is, can the Jets make the playoffs? Can the Jets make the playoffs? Now it's going to be hard because the Jets have had all their division games at home. Okay, they lost to New England. They took it. They beat Miami with a no tour, and of course they just took out Buffalo. So, but the other three remaining divisional games will be on the road. So keep that in mind. So I think more than likely it'll be two teams out the AFC East, but this division has been much better than what we thought going into this season for sure. Stock down. I should have somebody there. Arizona Cardinals. I'm sorry, I didn't have Arizona, but Arizona Cardinals stock down. The reason why Arizona is stock down because they just look like a team that is going in like 20 different directions. I mean, you have a quarterback who we know has franchise talent, who seems not to be on the same page with his coach. You have a coach. I think that Cliff Kingsbury is going to be done after this year. To be honest with you, I don't think Arizona's making the playoffs. I think they're going to feel like they don't want to waste Kyler Murray. Yeah, Kyler Murray's. He's still relatively young, but I think the thought process is we should be making the playoffs with Kyler Murray every year, and I think Kingsbury can be done. They just have not been on. They have just looked bad all season long. Even when they've won games, they haven't looked. They've been ugly wins, and we knew that this team you know, was going to be one of those teams that could go in either direction. I just don't think, frankly, they've recovered from that playoff loss, embarrassing loss to the Rams. Even with the contract with Kyler Murray, the whole questioning in essence, questioning his work ethic from the standpoint of how hard he studies, and that I still think that that's had lingering effects on that relationship between he and the organization, and I think there are some thoughts that the guy's a diva and a prima donna, to be honest with you. So I don't think that I don't like the vibe of that franchise right now at all. Um, Now they get DeAndre. I know DeAndre DeAndre Hopkins is back, but that's still not that you saw him and Murray on the sidelines arguing uh, after you know a third down, not being able to convert a third down, where Murray had to check off. I don't know if Hawkins had ran the wrong route, whatever. Just a bad vibe. There's no leadership on that team right now, and Murray should be the leader, but I don't think, even despite the fact that he is their franchise quarterback, that he's respected as that leader. I don't. Biggest disappointment. I did who won the week? We'll get to the biggest disappointment. We'll get to the biggest disappointment in terms of who won the week. So who won the week? I had the Titans and the Astros. First, we dealt with the Titans. The Titans, I feel like, have jumped back into legit AFC Championship contention. I don't think the Titans can go to the Super Bowl. Like I don't think the Titans will go to the Super Bowl. Though if they did play Kansas City in the playoffs in the AFC Championship, I couldn't exactly eliminate that, eliminate that off the table. Um, but I think the Titans have returned back to a team that you don't, if you're Buffalo or Kansas City, especially if you're Kansas City, that you don't want to face in the playoffs. Uh, they are one of the most physical teams in the league. Derrick Henry has been spectacular. We know what the coach can bring to the table. They know that they're not going to beat themselves. They're going to be as prepared as any team in the league, and they know how to win. Like, this is a team that has won multiple division titles. They've been to an AFC Championship in the last couple of years. They're not going to be, again. It does not matter where they play at. They will go anytime, any place, anywhere, and bring their hard hats. And that is and they know, this is the thing I look for in my championship caliber teams. I think Buffalo has it. I think Philadelphia has it. I know Kansas City has it. Knowing who you are, they know who they are as a team in terms of what they're trying to do and what they want to do. Also, Houston Astros, congratulations to them. Their second championship in 5 years. I mentioned this a couple of podcasts ago. They are the preeminent franchise in baseball. It's not even close. The most well-run franchise in baseball. I don't want to hear anything more about the cheating. I don't want to hear anything more about trash cans. They go out there and dominate in the postseason. They basically sweep through the American League. They did sweep through the American League. Or did they lost one game? No, they swept the Yankees. What I'm talking about. They swept through the American League and then were able to down 2-1 against the Phillies. Won three straight games to wrap it up in 6 games. Get the Phillies credit too. Nobody thought the Phillies after they fired their manager would return back, would turn their season back, turn their season around and get already to the World Series, but they did. So give them credit from that standpoint. But the Astros are at the top of the heap, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. That they are smart. They just they how they run their franchise with in terms of analytics, in terms of drafting, player development. They're doing it better than anyone. Period. They lose a manager, lose a general manager. It doesn't matter. They get accused and penalized with the cheating. It doesn't matter. They they will be right back in the playoffs next year, right back in the ALCS next year. At the worst, they're going to be in the league championship series, which they have been in six straight years. So give them a ton of credit for how they're well run. And again, they're a franchise that does not allow a lot of these franchises in baseball allowing analytics to get in the way of the manager and get in the way of making sound baseball decisions, especially in the postseason. They're not doing that. They follow analytics, but not to a point to where it paralyzes their manager in terms of making decisions in a key spot in the postseason. Speaking of managers, congratulations to Dusty Baker. It's been a long time coming for Dusty Baker. For Dusty, been in baseball forever, even as a player, as a manager. Remember, I was rooting hard for Dusty back in 2002. With Barry Bonds and that team that should have won a championship against the Angels. They were up 3-2. Game 6, 5-0. And then, Scott Spezio hits a three-run homer, and then the wheels fall off. Remember, a lot of Giants fans were heated but Dusty Baker took out Russ Ortiz, who at that time hadn't given him a run through, I think, 6 innings, and took him out, and the bullpen fell apart. We all know the story from that standpoint. And Dusty, I thought that would be Dusty's last best chance to win it. It was not. That was not the case. Um, he is well deserving. He's been in baseball forever. Always, every one of his teams always make the playoffs. They're always competitive. I know people go crazy in terms of how he uses his bullpen, overuses his bullpen, but whatever. He is a champion, and it's been in. I like to see guys like obviously a black man, but seeing someone who has persevered through so many different playoff failures and what have you, and finally gets his championship ring. So congratulations to him and the rest of the Houston Astro organization. Biggest disappointment, not Jeff Saturday, the person, but just the whole the entire situation. Uh, Jeff Saturday had to, of course, he's been named the interim head coach of the Indianapolis Colts for the rest of the season, as Frank Wright was relieved of duties earlier in the week. And one of his quotes during the talk with Jim Irsay, who has no clue what he's doing as an owner, why am I a candidate for this? That was a direct Jeff Saturday quote. Here's a guy with no head coaching, no forgive it, he has no NFL head coaching or assistant or coaching experience, had no college football coaching experience, coached a high school parochial team that wasn't even that good. But again, white privilege is exactly what, this is, a prime example of white privilege. And the NFL there's a lot of white privilege in the NFL. But this one is, even for the NFL, this one is rough, to be honest with you. My goodness. I mean, you could be, Eric Bieniemy, has been the offensive coordinator of like the best offense of the last half decade. And he can't sniff a job, seemingly. Um, Listen, the NFL, forget about, I can't even say this is embarrassing for the NFL, because the NFL does not get embarrassed. It seems like there's nothing that embarrasses the NFL. The NFL is destroying people in terms of the ratings. They're gonna have they're gonna have the highest rated programs of the year. So even before the Super Bowl. So like the NFL, it doesn't matter at this point. Like the NFL was like, okay, whatever. Like this is not going to change anytime soon. Like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like we can bitch it, we can complain about this, and it is wrong, But it is what it is. Unfortunately, I don't see any. I don't see this shift of all of a sudden the NFL is going to hire like six black coaches or five, or I don't see how this changes. I just don't, because the NFL, there's nothing that to hold the NFL accountable with. They have by far the most powerful sports product on the planet. Out of four major sports, it's not even close. Now, it's not the best product. I think the NBA is a better product on the floor, but that doesn't matter in terms of prime time games, in terms of ratings, uh, you know, live action. They have the most powerful product in sports. Period. The people are going to flock to it no matter what, no matter how bad Goodell is, no matter what the player's character. No, it does not. It doesn't matter. Bad boy. Blackball the player for taking a knee. None of that matters. None of that matters. The NFL is basically a untouchable commodity, and they move like it. Period. So this, Indianapolis just has no clue whatsoever. They've gone through a million quarterbacks since Andrew Luck retired. They now going through another they're going to go through another coach. Saturday's not going to be the permanent coach. I don't see. I just don't see that happening. To me, this was clearly them tanking for possibly Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud out of Ohio State. So they're tanking for what to get one of those quarterbacks. But again, this is how the NFL moves, right? This is what the NFL is. Like, you see a guy with zero coaching experience just fall into a job, one of 32, fall into a head coaching job, and this is what it is to be a black man in the NFL. This is what it is. This is what you have to deal with. Watching this, this embarrassment year in and year out, or having to deal with this year in and year out. Week 10, Minnesota Buffalo should be very interesting. Um, I don't think Minnesota is that good. Like, I think if there's such thing as a soft 7-1, I think they are. Washington easily. Washington probably should have beat them this past week. A bit up 10 points in the fourth quarter. But, look, Dalvin Cook can do some damage. Like, they got receivers that can hurt Buffalo, but is more importantly, this could be a Dalvin Cook game. We'll see if Buffalo can shore up that running game, that rushing defense. The game is in Buffalo, so I think Buffalo will bounce back, but I'm not as like I'm not as confident as I probably should be about Buffalo going into that game. Though I do think they will bounce back and win a close game. Dallas and Green Bay, this game looked great preseason, but right now these are two teams going in opposite directions. I understand Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers in particular has owned Dallas, but that will not, Green Bay just can't. Green Bay is not going to be able to block Dallas. That's all there is to it. They not. I mean, um, Michael Parsons is going to have a field day against that Green Bay offensive line. I think Green Bay will struggle to score 10 points. So I definitely like Dallas in that game, despite the recent history of the two teams, completely different, just completely different teams than what they have been in recent memories. I don't. What's happened in the past means absolutely nothing to me when it comes to this game, this particular game that's going to be at Lambeau Field. And by the way, Lambeau Field hasn't been like, the Jets walked in there and handled Green Bay, so that aura has worn off as well this season. Um, Chargers San Francisco should be interesting because these are two of the three teams that I'm very curious about, along with that I'm still trying to find out about. I would say um, San Francisco, the LA Chargers, and New England Patriots are three teams that I don't. I'm still not all the way sold on, despite their records. I definitely not New England. I shouldn't even put them in there. But the Chargers and San Francisco are teams that have Super Bowl caliber talent per se, right? Those are two teams that could go to the Super Bowl on sheer talent. I don't think they will. San Francisco is very intriguing considering the Christian McCaffrey trade. We know how great that defense is, and they're very well coached from a schematic standpoint with Kyle Shanahan, but have been very inconsistent this year. This will be a fun game to watch. that the San Francisco defense match up against Justin Herbert and that offense. Chargers are quietly have put together some wins. They are 5-3 at this point in that seventh spot, and still only a game behind. Well, really 2 games behind uh, Kansas City for that division for the AFC in terms of the AFC West. Still have another game with Kansas City, by the way. They're the only team that's even remotely getting close to Kansas City in that division, as the rest of the division is just on its ass. So should be a fun game um, to watch on a Sunday night. So should be a good a very good week 10. We are approaching Thanksgiving. So we shouldn't have no more weeks of any duds as far as honeydew weekends, honeydew Sundays in the NFL. These games we're gonna start soon getting into some divisional play. Um, Again, this is basically the halfway point of the season. As of right now, how many teams I think could win the Super Bowl? I think three. I would say Buffalo, Kansas City. I would say Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Kansas City in that order. So those are 3 teams I think that can win the Super Bowl. Buffalo, Kansas City, and Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Kansas City. I put Philadelphia ahead of Kansas City because Kansas City's in the same division, in the same conference as Buffalo. I do think Philadelphia. Uh, I'm not saying they. I don't think Philadelphia is heads and shoulders above everyone, but I think they're a slight notch above everybody else in that conference. And if they can stay healthy, they're going to be difficult to deal with moving forward. They really are. Now they have in essence they basically have they don't have the home field wrapped up, but they have a 2 game lead. They remember they're Minnesota's only loss. Um, they in essence have a 3 game lead over Dallas in that division. So they're gonna be if they get home field, it's gonna be difficult for anybody to go into that stadium, Philadelphia in that stadium and win and keep them from going to the Super Bowl. So those are 3 teams I think that can win the Super Bowl right now. It should be a great second half to the season. The MVP thing. I like, you know, a lot of people are pushing for Hurts. Allen has had a bad 6 quarters. Um, you got to put Mahomes. Mahomes has got to be in that mix as well. Still a lot to be decided from that standpoint. Still a lot to be decided from that standpoint. No, there's no clear cut MVP right now. Uh, Final thoughts. So the Nets decided to hire Jock Vaughn as their coach for the rest of the season. Um, they stand clear of Udoka. I don't blame them for that. I think that you have enough issue. They have enough issues going on with Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, and just that franchise in general, where it was like we really want our players answering questions about non-basketball questions about their head coach. I think that certainly had a lot to play into it. Again, this is not an anti-Udoka. I think Udoka is a tremendous coach, but Udoka by himself was not going to shift that culture. It's just not going to happen. Like it's just that culture has to be torn apart and rebuilt. And I frankly don't even think they have the people in that organization to do that right now. I don't think Marks is. Joe Tsai hasn't. He's shown that he's basically let Marks do whatever he wants. So he's not the guy. From an ownership standpoint, he's not. Doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing from that standpoint, from picking the right um, from because of allowing Marks to do whatever. I just don't. And we know we've discussed in detail about Durant. You can't have Durant and Irving running your franchise as players. So there was no coach. I don't care who you could bring Greg Popovich in his prime. It doesn't matter. There was no coach that was going to single-handedly shift that culture and just rebuild that culture by themselves. It just was not going to happen. So I don't have a problem with them going away to going the route of Jock Vaughn. They were of course impressed by Jock Vaughn during the bubble when they had a winning record. I think they finished 7-3 in the bubble, ended up making the playoffs, and before getting knocked out in the first round. But it's the safe choice. And right now, playing it safe is probably the best course of action for the Brooklyn Nets right now. Probably wouldn't stand clear of taking any more risk in terms of for the near future. So we'll see what happens with that. Players seem to like him. They've played better. Again, it's not a coincidence that since Kyrie has been suspended, that they've played better basketball. Like when you're not answering questions about somebody 24/7, you tend to be able to focus on actually winning basketball games, and that's a big deal. Not having that distraction, that black cloud hanging over your head as a franchise, as a player, in the locker room, where is that does matter. Believe it or not, it really does. I know we think that these guys are superhuman, are just superhuman, and they can compartmentalize anything. They're human beings just like the rest of us from that standpoint. They get distracted as well. And Kyrie again, the Kyrie Irving fact. Now we'll see what happens if he's going to come back. He's eligible to come back very soon. I think even early next week after I think after they play the Clippers or the Lakers, they go on the West Coast after they play one of those teams. He's eligible to come back, so we'll see how the suspension goes past 5 games. But they've clearly played much better basketball without him. That goes without saying. Like, even their losses have been very good losses. They lost a tough game at Dallas. They destroyed the Knicks, destroyed Washington, had a nice comeback win against Charlotte. So they've played better basketball. The Chicago loss, that was off. That I mean, he was there for the Chicago loss. What I'm talking about, yeah. So that was his last game. His last game was against Chicago last week, middle of last week. I don't even count that one because he actually played in that one, played in that game. But yeah, they played much better basketball without him. Period. They have. Now again, I don't, they're not going. They weren't going anywhere with him without a distraction. Like that, the team is just not good enough. But I I completely agree with them going the route of not getting Udoka. I understand why they did it. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I hope everybody enjoys their Veterans Day weekend. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there that have served our country and continue to serve as well, and protect our country and protect the world. What you do is priceless, and can't thank you enough for that. From that standpoint, again, I have a very very special podcast that I'm going to be releasing probably later on this weekend, if not on early next week, if not this weekend. I will keep you posted with updates. So long.